Hello chess family, it's me, National Master Jesse James, and today we're going to be taking a look at my chess tournament that I got to play in the Denver Open. It's been a long time coming, but I'm happy to be reviewing these games. In my first game, I'm going to be looking at playing, I believe it's pronounced Vendoth Sempath. Hopefully I pronounced that correctly. Let's go ahead and take a look. This is a very strong expert. We start off with d4, knight f6. I'm playing with the white pieces. Bishop g5. Of course, I'm playing my Tory. Knight e4, bishop f4. Pawn to d5, knight to d2. Bishop f5, knight to f3, knight takes and queen takes. Here I was very happy with my opening, as I've got some pieces developed very fast. Pawn e3, pawn to e6, knight to d7, and bishop to d3. So one thing I always like to do, especially if they bring their bishop out to the f5 square, I'm best off just trading it as well. If I don't trade off, then their bishop is very good. Bishop g6 got played. I went ahead and castled, and bishop d6 got played. Here I did think for quite a while, and to try and make some kind of imbalance in the position, I went ahead and played knight to e5. He went ahead and took, giving me the bishop pair, which I was very happy to have, and I took back with the pawn, of course, to maintain it. Here he played pawn c6 with the idea of playing queen c7 to put pressure on the e5 pawn. So I played bishop to g3, queen c7, and the original idea of playing bishop g3 was to play this pawn to f4 idea. After sitting and analyzing in this position, I decided to do it a little bit differently and play queen to c3 to defend. He played pawn c5, another very interesting move. I assume the idea was to try and play something like c4 here and I guess kind of kick this bishop off its diagonal. And again, I was a little bit hesitant to play f4, but after thinking about it for a while, I went ahead and played f4 anyways. And then he went ahead and played queen to b6, as I had a nice idea here. For instance, if he does play something like a6, the idea here was to play pawn to f5 in this position. And here, black's having a very tough game, because you cannot take on f5 as they have the e6 idea here. And yep, you're just already in a winning position because you have a double attack on the queen and also the pawn. So his move queen to b6 makes plenty of sense to me. And I went ahead and played bishop f2 to go ahead and defend the pawn, but also looking at ideas against this queen. Because remember, he was looking at playing pawn c4 here. And well, unfortunately for him, he goes ahead and plays pawn c4, and now it's white to move and get an advantage. What do you play here as white? I do encourage you to push pause and see if you can find the best move here. Alright, hopefully you found it. Here you go ahead and play bishop takes on g6. I know a lot of people here are probably looking at playing pawn to e4 first, which unfortunately does not work out too well here. Here I'd analyze something like queen c6 can get played. And yeah, this is just going to be losing the tempo that you need. You know what? I'm so sorry. Queen c6 would not be too good, as pawn takes will get a nice tempo off the queen here, and then bishop can take again. So with that being said, let's go ahead and not lose a tempo. And here, computer's just suggesting move queen to a6, and now you've got to deal with both of these ideas. It feels good to make that one little move, but now your bishop's still hanging. So if you move your bishop away, bishop takes on e4, and well, black's just better here, up an extra pawn. Alright, so the idea was simple. We want to play e4 here and take on d5, but we got to just trade off bishops first. So bishop takes g6, h takes g6. Here, after analyzing, I was making sure that there was no weaknesses with this open h file, and there really isn't. And now I play pawn e4, queen c6, and now I'm able to take on d5, giving them a bad pawn here. Why? Well, of course you don't want to play queen takes d5, as white just has a huge advantage here by developing the rook after d1. Queen has to go to c6, and now you're getting free tempos, rook to d6, and you can double up your rooks. Here, white is definitely in the driving seat and will have a very good game. Back in the game, he goes ahead, of course, and plays pawn takes, and now I'm very happy because I have this nice pawn structure here. And I was analyzing for quite a while to find the best move. Probably something easier, like rook a to d1 would have been best, but I had a feeling he was looking to castle queenside here, and I wanted to try and discourage that as much as possible. Kingside, I'd be very happy for him to play, so I went ahead and came up with this interesting move of pawn to b4. Of course, one of the ideas I was kind of worried about was this knight to c5 going to e4, and I didn't want to lose my dark square bishop here, so pawn b4 was the move I came up with. And well, of course, if he goes ahead and trades, I thought the endgame here was just much better. I would simply just trade, and then play a takes b3, and now I have good pressure on the a pawn. The next few moves are all forced, and yeah, I think that white's just much better here. If a6 or a5, it doesn't really matter. I'll go ahead and play the rook up, double up rooks, and put pressure on the a pawn if it just doesn't fall right away. So back in the game, after pawn b4, he went ahead and played knight f8, and you can see that the knight is rerouting to go to the e6 square. And this is actually a very good square for the knight to move to. Well, let's go ahead and keep pushing forward. Let's keep making threats. I went ahead and tried this bishop c5 move out, so that after knight e6, I was going to play the bishop to d6. And I really like my bishop here. It looks like it's cutting off everything, and it's definitely a good piece in the game. Here, he played knight c7, missing a very good way to create counterplay here with pawn to d4, which I had seen, but I was not too worried about. I'd assume I would play something like queen g3 with ideas of f5 and just keep pushing forward. But they say this is the best, the computer says this is the best way for black to maintain the equality, if not have a good position. Here, unfortunately for him, he went ahead and just played knight c7, and here the idea was to play knight to b5. Again, I analyzed the position for quite a while, and I was happy to find pawn to a4, and then to my great surprise, he went ahead and castled queenside. I thought this is definitely a very good position for me now. I was going over, and I thought b5 was a move that he would be playing here, which there was a few moves that I was going to play here, but my first instinct was to play bishop takes, queen takes, and pawn takes on b5. This is okay. After queen b6, check king h1, queen takes b5, rook a5. There's some pressure here, but I didn't like this position as much. What I was planning to play if this idea of b5 did come through, b5 trying to stop this and close the position, was I was actually going to be playing pawn to f5 here, just trying to open up the king side. And if pawn takes, I can just simply take on g6. If knight b5, the queen can come over. I also can take on the pawn here. Here I thought I'd just have a very good attacking position. But again, to my surprise, he went ahead and just castled queenside. And yeah, my pawn's already getting pushed up forward. I just got to find a way to open up the position. So I started off with a nice move here with queen to d4. I wanted to make sure there was no checks if I played b5 right away. Here we played pawn b6. All right, your turn. Take a second here and look for a line to open up this position. I was very happy with this following sequence. We talked after the game, and he told me that he was about equal here, and I was like, oh, wow. I felt very, very confident in this position, and I believe I found the best move in this position. All right, white to move. What do you play? All right, this line is all about forced opening up lines. So we start up with b5 here, attacking the queen. The queen goes ahead and retreats. b7 and d7. b7 was definitely best here. Unfortunately for him, he played queen to d7. And here, I played b5 with the next move in mind. Now, you might have found b5, but you have to find this next move to maintain a good advantage. White to move here. What is the best way to keep pushing forward here? All right, hopefully you found it. Believe it or not, it's actually this move of pawn to a5. A lot of people here would think about maybe playing rook f to b1 here, but I believe this gives black plenty of time to start defending here with something like king b7. And so, well, I just didn't like this, and I wanted something a little bit more aggressive, so I played pawn to a5. And here, well, you'll see that knight takes b5 does not do any good, because queen takes d5, and the game is getting very, very bad here. With the idea of check over here, the knight's hanging. You can't go queen b7 to stop this so easily. So if knight takes on d6, we have a nice winning line here with queen a8 check, which I had foreseen. King c7. Here I was planning on queen takes a7 check. And if knight b7, lots of moves here to play. But queen takes b6 check. And white just has a winning game here. The a6 pawn is going to be pushed forward. And this king is just too vulnerable. It's not going to last too long. So he went ahead and played queen takes b5 in this situation after I played a5. And yeah, this knight takes b5, as we saw in some variations, was just not working. So queen takes b5 still keeps defending the pawn here on d5. And again, simple chess. Let's keep moving forward. Let's keep making threats. Rook f to b1 got played. Queen went to c6. Pawn takes. And again, he can look about playing knight to b5 here. And that's what he does. Fortunately here, again, I found a very nice refutation line. White to move and get an advantage. This is a top move by computers. All right, what's the move here? Here, believe it or not, we play the pawn move to b7 check here. There's a lot of different ideas here, but pawn d7 check, pawn to b7 check is if the king does take, well, now it's just going to be checkmate in 4 moves. Can you find it? Here we go. Rook takes b5 check. And if queen takes, well, checkmate in 2 here. Check. Mate on c7. Of course, the only other way to stop it is to play this move queen to b6, which again is just losing. Rook takes on a7 check, king takes, and queen takes with rook or queen sliding over for the mate. All right, back to the game. Here, at this point, after b7 check, he played the only move that's surviving here, king to d7, just running out the way. And, well, let's continue this attack. I went ahead and played rook takes on b5, with the idea of taking on a7, making a new queen over here. He took back. I played with queen takes on a7 check, and he played king to e6. Here, you can continue this game nice and easy, and maybe just play a slow roll. But here I found a very nice forced line here with making a queen. Rook takes. Here apparently it's checkmate in 8. I made a mistake and let him off the hook here, but I did play the first few moves to it. Queen e7 check, and then rook to e1, and this was the mistake. Here I'm supposed to play queen g5 check, king e4. If you run back to e6 here, well, now I have f5 check cutting off the king, so after g takes f5, queen e7's mate, which I missed, obviously. And so here the king has to run to e4, rook to e1 check, king to d4, and this escape square is taken off by the bishop. So all we got to do is get the queen back into this. So f5, a nice clearance sacrifice to get the queen to e3, king c3, queen e3 check, king over to b2, queen c1 check, king c3, rook e3 check, king to d2 with, well, you can do queen d2 checkmate, but you know, give back to the community. Let's go ahead and give pawn c3 checkmate. Pawns don't get to give checkmates too much, so it's nice to spread the wealth around. All right. Back in the game, though, again, I did miss this, and I played the rook over to e1 right away, thinking that this was unstoppable mate with queen g5 and other ideas here. I do end up finding a nice checkmate, but it did take me quite a while here. Here he played pawn f6, and queen takes g7, queen b6 check, king h1, and queen to d8, guarding this f6 square. All right, white to move. Force checkmate again. What do you play here? All right, hopefully push pause. Hopefully you're trying to get this. Here, g4 check. King takes on f4. Of course, if king takes on g4, this is a much easier checkmate. Queen takes g6, king takes f4. The rook and queen will find the mate very, very fast, which is very similar to the game that I played. After this, I went ahead and played queen takes on g6. Again, more checkmates with this guy over here. And he went ahead and played queen to d7. And simple chess here. What do you play? Of course, pawn e6 blocking and putting this king in check here. And, well, there's no better move other than queen takes d6 and queen f5 checkmate. A nice game, a nice first round for my first game in the Denver Open 2022. Next game I'm going to be playing against Jesse Curry, the Grandmaster, one of America's homegrown Grandmasters. We'll see you in the next video for that one.